Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Nita Nay's Books, Author's Point of View. My guest is Joy B. Yanni. She is all the way from Chicago. She currently has two books in this series. One is Time Benders and the Machine. The second is Time Benders and the Two Promises. Let's welcome Joy B. Yanni. All right, Joy B. Yanni, tell us a little bit about you and who you are.
Well, thank you very much, first of all,
Mhm.
for having me. And a little bit about myself. I am second in line of four siblings, which which is a little bit like the characters of my books.
Right?
But yeah, Chicago area, born and raised, and you know, now working on all these novels.
Oh, good, good, good. So tell us a little bit about Time Benders. I know now you have two books in your series. So tell us about one and two.
Sure. The first book, Time Benders in the Machine, introduces the readers to the four siblings who, in boarding school, discover a unfinished formula for bending time and use that to begin adventures to, try and change moments in history. In the second book, of course, that continues, and they start to discover, some issues with the actual science related to time travel,
Right?
particularly in terms of getting too close to meeting yourself.
Okay.
And then they just embark on an adventure to go forward to try and help a friend of theirs discover whether or not they're going to face a terrible illness in their future. And, along the way, we get to learn a lot about these teens and their lives and their issues as they deal with the grief of losing their parents and,
Wow.
becoming close and, questioning this whole path of using the time machine.
Right, right. So tell me a little bit how this idea came about. Where did you think about, really not time travel in that sense of where did that love or idea come from in these books?
Sure. First of all, I have a couple of favorite novels that are about time travel.
Uh,
I think everybody has a moment in their life where they say, "Oh, I wish I could go back and redo that."
oh yes.
And I've always been a little fascinated with the idea of maybe meeting historical figures or seeing something in history because that's one of my favorite subjects. So that's really where the idea was born to use the time travel. The fact that it's teens was really an idea to show that young people can accomplish great things
Right,
and
right,
it doesn't always have to be about negative news. And so
right, exactly.
so and I really wanted to have something that was age appropriate for young people and about them and them doing wonderful things. So that's where the ideas came from.
Good. So tell us a little bit about how you got into writing and where did that
Well,
passion
I've been sort of off and on writing a little bit most of my life. Way back when I was a teenager, I, worked on newspapers and yearbooks and things like that. And
okay.
over time, spent some time doing other kinds of writing in my previous careers and,
Mm-hmm.
kept this idea in the back of my mind. Oh, I'd really love to write a book someday. And circumstances changed for me and, it seemed like the right time. So
Oh, okay.
off I went.
Right. So tell me in the aspect of your writing in completing both of these novels, what has been your most fun or interesting aspect throughout
Well,
your
the
process?
most interesting part, I think, has been learning the science.
Okay.
It's not, yeah, it's not my favorite subject of all time,
Right.
but it's been very interesting learning, the scientific, the current academic theories about it, and where, some of the pitfalls might be with time travel. It's
Oh,
been
wow.
interesting
Okay.
to play that out in the story, in my imagination of what might happen. So that's really been probably the most interesting part of it. And quite frankly, it's been a learning adventure on these characters, because you think about what they're going to be like when you start writing, and you realize along the way that you're having little conversations with your characters, and
Right.
you learn things about them.
Right. Right. Well, that's character building, and that's world building, and ideal, all of that. So that's good to know that you get that in depth in your characters. So tell me, on the other end of that spectrum, has there been anything that's been challenging or not so fun in this process?
Well, I think the not so fun in this process for me hasn't been so much the writing as
Mhm.
it's been, getting it in front of people.
Uh,
Particularly this past year, of course, with everything that's
right,
gone on,
right,
introducing the second book in February, right before all of this, has really, sort of stumbled me, because quite frankly, what I love to do is go to libraries, and I've done in
right,
the past a lot of events at the libraries, which lets me meet all kinds of people and introduce
right,
the story and get their feedback, which has been very helpful and very enriching about the process. But
right.
the past year, of course, has sort of stumped us all. And so,
Oh, absolutely.
in that way, it
Absolutely.
sort of stumped
Yeah.
me a little bit. So,
Right, right. So, tell me a little bit about your process in your beginning writing. Well, once you completed the first, but did you decide early on that you were going to self-publish, or did you do traditional publishing? What
well,
was your thought process with that?
when I first started writing, I really thought I was going to go a traditional publishing route.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
did a lot of research about and went to a lot of writing conferences to meet agents and meet other writers and talk through that process, and started that exploration, but also began, exploring the other options.
Right,
The assisted publishing, where there's a little bit of a traditional aspect to it, but not
right.
fully, and self-publishing. And, what I realized by the time I'd finished the first book is that the process that fit my personal needs and
Mm-hmm.
what I thought was the best for me was that assisted publishing.
Okay.
So, it looks and feels like a fully published book, but basically the way that assisted publishing works is, the author pays a little bit into that process.
Right,
And what the assisted publisher brings is the background to get it registered, get your ISBN registration and your
right,
copyright and those kinds of things. And they put you in touch with people that can help you with cover designs and things like
right,
that.
right,
And they go to the same house as the traditional print publishers
right,
do for printing. But what I really discovered was, regardless of what route you went, you were going to have to market your own book.
right.
So, in the process, that assisted publishing really seemed to fit my requirements, because what I really wanted was complete and total control over the process.
Right,
you know,
right, right,
Sometimes, traditional publishers are wonderful, but sometimes when you're a brand new writer, one of the sacrifices you'll have to make to work with a traditional publisher is to give up some rights to the
right,
work, so that
right.
you basically let them come in and do a lot of editing and make
Mhm.
a lot of choices about that. And that was something I thought, maybe I don't want to do that, but
Right,
that
right,
doesn't mean that that's not the right path for someone else. So,
right, right, exactly.
I think every writer needs to explore all of those options
Mhm.
and really come up with the plan that works best for them. And I think one of the bits of advice I'd give to any writer is regardless of whether you're at Simon and Schuster or you're self-publishing through Kindle publishing, you are going to have to market your material. They're
Exactly.
not going to do it for you.
Right,
so,
right.
so, in that respect, I think a lot of people think, oh, I go to, I get a publishing contract and, I'm going to immediately sell 1 million copies of the book.
Exactly.
That's not what happens. So
Exactly. And I appreciate you for saying that because, I want to get all aspects of, the process of writing. I want to get different, ideas from other people so that a beginning writer who may even read this, who will see this, will
right.
have an idea of, you know, what are my next steps? I have this book. Where do I go next? And so it's important to say that each person has to, figure out and research and do all of that to find out what best fits them
Yes.
and their genre and all of that.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
important.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And it
thank
is
you.
it is in some cases very much genre related as well.
Right,
The path, if you're going to write a children's book or a romance novel, is very, very different than
right,
the one you would use to write a memoir or even, a young adult science fiction. So you really have to think not just, what's right for me, but what is going to best launch my particular project.
right.
So, I think the choices will be different for everyone, every genre, and even maybe every project. Someone who, uses Kindle Direct Publishing for years and does 3 or 4 projects that way, and then suddenly decides, I want this project to take a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you have to, just because you've selected it for one project, use it universally,
Right,
you do other
right.
projects. So, and, that was one of the things I learned at a lot of those conferences was different agents, different publishers for different kinds of work.
Right, right,
And
exactly.
so, I think, a writer, a new writer, I would say, try and attend a conference, find a community writing group, ask questions, use them as resources so that you don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. They might have some good tips, and find some resources. There's all kinds of groups for independent authors and ways to get to resources like editors and illustrators and things.
Right,
So
exactly.
you really have to explore and you really have to find the best fit for your needs and your project.
Good. So we'll get in a little bit of the technical side of your writing. So who did your book covers? Was that something that you created on your own, or did you have someone
In both
do those
cases,
for you?
yeah, in both cases, I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted on the cover.
Right.
And a pretty good idea of how I wanted it to look. But I did work with someone independent who took my ideas and, put them together in a back and forth collaboration. And, I'm very happy with how they turned out.
Oh, good,
They're
good.
very much geared to, younger people reading, but
Hmm.
I think people pick up a book and look at the cover and read the back, and that's how they
Right.
decide if they're going to take it home.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
you have to really think about the message you want to convey on a cover and then the text on the back to
Right.
draw people in and give them something to to attach to and say, okay, I want to see what this is about.
Right. So tell me a little bit about, is there any particular programs that you use in your writing? Word, Google Docs, any editing programs that you might use?
Well, I do most of my writing in Microsoft Word.
Okay.
I use resources like Grammarly and some others to do some
Mhm.
checking in my self-editing process.
Right.
That's really in terms of tools I'm actually using.
Mhm.
Um, you know, with the covers, I've done a little bit of photoshopping to try and, you know, convey my ideas to the illustrator, who, you know, the people I find, you know, through some
Right.
other resources.
Right.
But, you know, I'm really, you know, I'm a little bit older. I'm a little bit older school. You know,
Right.
I print out sections and read them.
Exactly.
And, you know, one of my steps in all my self-editing is to read the entire book out loud.
Right.
And so,
Right.
you know, when you read out loud, you find things like words that are missing, or, you know, pace, sentences that are too long, places where
Hmm.
you really need some punctuation.
Right.
You
Right.
know, you find all those things when you know, you let go and you just read it as it's written, you know, every word, and, you know, don't put words in there, you know, because
Right.
you
Right.
understand the
Exactly.
thought. You know, you'll find all kinds of errors that you made. So, you know, another tip for other writers, you know, it's worth it to find an editor who understands your genre,
Right.
you know, and understands your audience, uh,
Right.
to help you in the edit process. Because, you know, no matter how good you think you are at writing, you become very attached to that thing.
Right.
And and sometimes you need someone to say, you know, do you really need to say that 4 times in 4 different chapters?
Right. Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, so I think everybody needs a, you know, an independent, you know, author, you know, editor that doesn't really necessarily know you. You know, this isn't a family member. You know, this is someone that you're paying to do a service for you, and
Right.
let them look
Exactly.
at it objectively. You'll end up with a much better product. It might
Exactly.
it might dent and ping your ego a little bit, but
Right.
you know, it
Well, but how do we get better? How do we get better if you don't have that beta reader or that
absolutely.
editor that says, okay, you know, yeah, you put I 4 times in the same sentence, so
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. I've had an editor get about halfway through the second book and come back and say, you know, perhaps you could find another word for, because you've used it over and over and over again.
Oh
Okay,
wow.
that's a good message.
Right, exactly, exactly. Well, that's good to know. So I have 2 more questions for you, and then we'll be done. So the first of the last question is, do you plan to write any more books in your series, in this particular series?
I do. I actually have finished the third book in the
Oh,
series. It's
good.
in
Okay.
that edit process right
Right.
now.
Got
Um,
you.
and so it probably will be released March or April-ish of
Okay.
this year,
Okay.
if I don't get distracted from the editing, which is my least favorite part of the job.
I think most everybody.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so that continues the teen story and their
Hmm.
adventures.
Hmm.
I have plotted out for a fourth. I'm not sure there'll be more than that, but you know,
Okay.
at this point, I've planned out that far.
Right.
So there will be some more coming in the Time Bender series, and I'm pretty excited about this third book. I think it really evolves the characters and has, you know, a pretty profound, you know, statement about it in terms of time travel, that, you know, just because you can, should you?
Right.
And, you know, really shows a huge leap, I think, in development of the characters and their understanding of this immense tool they've somehow managed to come across, and whether or not it's really serving them. And more importantly, along the way, what have they learned, and, you know, how they have grown and almost not need it anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, they understand that what comes for you in your future, you know, you need to wait for. If you know
Right.
about it, you
Hmm.
know, you will stop trying, stop
Hmm.
hoping, stop living. And if you go back and change things, it's way too easy to mess something up. So you might want to be content with where you are, and happy with the people in your lives and the things you're doing, and just let it evolve,
Right.
spontaneously. So it's, it was probably the most challenging one of the three
Oh.
so far to write,
Mhm.
but it's been, I think it's going to be the best of the
Oh,
three.
wow. Okay. Well, I think that statement is profound, for everyone. Sometimes we have to just be content
Yes.
where we
You
are.
you grow as a writer, I think, as you go. So of course your writing is going to get better.
Right, right,
But
exactly.
as the story sort of plays itself out,
Hmm.
things sort of solidify, and I think that's been, probably the most rewarding part of this. So
Great. So, last question for you. What does Joy like to do for fun? What does she like to do? You know, writing is our passion, but what do we like to do for fun outside of writing?
well, reading.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm an extraordinarily voracious reader.
Hmm.
I'll try just about anything.
Right.
My favorite genres are absolutely historical fictions,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean I won't read, nonfiction or an
Right.
occasional mystery.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
reading very much. I do enjoy painting and other art forms.
Oh, good, good.
Yes, and as I'm a relatively new grandma, it does my
Oh, congratulations.
yes, it does involve, some fun playing with and talking to a
Hmm.
very precocious 3-year-old.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But
Not a grandma yet. Not a grandma yet. So I don't know about all that yet.
yeah.
So
Well, she's probably precocious because her grandma reads to her all the time.
right.
So,
Exactly. Exactly. Well, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. My grandma is a writer and can read to her and give her the imagination that we all have but need to develop. So that is great. Thank you so much, Joy.
sure.
I am her information will be below in the description area, and go out and buy her books, The Time Machine and Time Benders, The Machine, and Time Benders Book 2, and The Two Promises. Thank you, Joy, and I appreciate you. See you again whenever your book 3 and your book 4 comes out.
I will be sure to contact you so that we can
Thank you.
talk about that newest version.
Yes.
All
All
right.
right. Thank you again.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Have a great day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, I wanted to thank Joy B. Yanni for joining me on this morning for another episode of Nita Nay's Books. Great interview. I appreciate her. Please take to heart, as a beginning writer, doing the research, finding out what's best for your genre, whether you're going to traditionally publish or you're going to do self-publishing. Either way, you still have to do that marketing portion that most writers dread anyway. So thank you for joining me, and see you next week. All right, bye-bye.